Bandwidth for this podcast is brought to you by Ideate Software. Be sure to check out all of their great Revit applications designed to increase your productivity.
Let's get started with BIMThoughts. Hey, this is Bill. I'm the host, co-host, all those things at BIMThoughts. I'm joined by the fabulous, way cool, and interesting Dana DeFilippi. Hello, Dana.
Hey, Bill.
And so for people who don't know who Dana DeFilippi is, who the heck is Dana DeFilippi?
Who is Dana DeFilippi? Well, I hope by now you guys have listened and heard enough of my nonsense to know a little bit about me, but I'm a BIM technologist at Smith Group. I love all things to do with Dynamo and optimizing Revit workflows in any way I can. Of course, Ideate Software, amazing. Always talk about those. But really just trying to help people in Revit do things easier and faster, more efficient, you know?
Better.
And better. What was the slogan it built a few years ago? It was like smarter and harder. I think it was a little bit
No, that
like
was
an
at
oxymoron.
AU.
It was AU. You're right.
Work smarter plus harder.
Yeah.
I have the button.
Yeah, you reference it quite frequently.
I'm gonna take a photograph of that and send it to Carl Storms, who isn't here today.
Yeah, we miss Carl.
We miss Carl already.
But. Well, even more incredible than me, we have Troy Gates, who I refer to as my other brother, Troy, because I have a brother named Troy, and Troy and I have been friends for, goodness, 5-6 years now from the conferences, and we're just the closest of friends. I love Troy. So Troy, define yourself.
I've always thought of myself in every role that I've ever been is I'm a problem solver. People bring me problems and I try to solve them. Most of the time it's through some kind of technology. A lot of times it's around process, but yeah, usually there's some technology mixed in of some sort. And that's kind of almost defined my career since I got onto or out of college, I guess. So it's been interesting.
What's your newest problem you've solved?
The recent problem I've solved?
Yeah, tell us something you're very proud of.
Well, right now, the biggest problem I'm trying to solve, and I haven't solved it yet, is just cleaning up data from a 20-year-old company that had lots of people in and out of it and has data in so many corners of the world that we don't know where it's all at.
I'm doing the same thing at my place of employment, cleaning up data.
Yep.
And I'm starting to use Power BI now, believe it or not.
Yeah, that seems really popular right now.
Moving from Tableau to Power BI.
Yeah, it's really taken off. I've seen it in a lot of presentations over the last 6 months, a lot of offerings from different companies wanting to teach people. Seems like it's finally mainstream.
One of the things that I love about Power BI is that it's pretty intuitive. I mean, I watched a YouTube video or two, but once you get in there and you start pressing the buttons and messing with it, seems a little bit daunting at first, but it's a pretty intuitive program. Unlike, I don't know, like Bluebeam, I get in there and I'm like, whoa, all these buttons, right? Like, it doesn't seem very intuitive to me. I know people love Bluebeam, so I shouldn't really go with that. But Power BI not only is an amazing program that allows you to...
I would have thought you thought Bluebeam was easier than Power BI.
Really? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, and I think that's something that we see a lot with our clients, right? I mean, especially the ones with campuses and different things like that, where they've been aggregating data about their facilities forever, right? And they're wanting to ask the right questions and get all the data and the BIM and all the good stuff. But, with data in every corner, under every carpet, and, in every file cabinet, all of that, how do we how do we comb all through that? What are you guys doing, Troy?
Yeah, up until a few years ago, all of our data was almost file based, right? And so we didn't have a tool to really, there's tools out there, but we didn't have an efficient way of looking at the data inside those files. But now we've got data in files. We've got lots of databases people are creating. We've got, people wanting to extract tons of data out of Excel, all kinds of things. And Power BI and tools like it do a great job on pulling out meaningful data, I think is the best way to put it. And I think that's getting our industry into actually that common phrase of big data. I see that as an industry, we're almost there, I think, and people are valuing it. Where before it was just, I just need to get my work done, and I'm going to keep doing it the same way I've always done it.
We just need to get everybody the heck out of Excel. If we can do that, the world would be a much better place.
Or just out of flat data altogether.
Yeah. No, if they could just get out of Excel and into a real database, that would be wonderful.
Cube data reminds me of Jurassic Park and the nice visual graphics they had on their computers with all the data in cubes.
Yeah, I remember those.
Yeah.
Never had one. Always wanted a silicon graphics machine. Don't know why, but by golly, those things were expensive.
They had pretty cases too. They were nice gray with purple.
But now you can get a Raspberry Pi that's got as much power as that, except for the video.
I think my smartwatch does too.
You've been playing with any of that stuff? Any of the Internet of Things?
It actually is something that's I haven't gotten into, but it is on my radar. I did a webcast a few weeks ago talking about COVID and how we think it's going to change the industry post COVID, and that was one of the things that came up was designing buildings with Internet of Things in it so that you can track things like social distancing and air quality and stuff like that. So I think that's going to be a lot more common. So I definitely want to be looking into it so I can be kind of on the forefront of that.
It'd be cool to get like a low powered Bluetooth thing that looks like a butt that you put on your lapel.
Yep.
Especially for visitors.
And it starts yelling at you when you get too close?
No, you just if you get them cheap enough, you just let them keep it, of course. But the battery would be dead in a day. Yeah. But then you could track where everybody is, where they went,
who they came in contact with,
and who they got close to, and when they were in the office. And I tried to do something like that with phone, but then Apple and Google got wise and started making it so you couldn't really track a phone with the with Bluetooth to the MAC address because they cycle their MAC addresses. So you really can't do that anymore.
They have tools on for job sites that construction workers wear that allows them to track where they're at on the job site. Just take that and make it a little smaller for an office space.
I was talking with I think it was Kelly Cohn years ago when he was still with Beck Group, and they made a hard hat that had a I think it had an Arduino in it that would keep track of temperature and then send it back to the safety officer if the temperature in the hard hat got too hot. So if they got too hot, they'd run up to where the guy was on the roof or wherever he was, and got him out of there and got him some water.
Oh, that's a good safety system.
That's pretty cool. I thought that was a pretty good use of Internet of Things.
What else do you see, Troy, in terms of how the industry is changing with the new normal?
The new normal. Well, there's a lot of buzz, and it's probably even before COVID happened, but around computational design. And Autodesk has even embraced it, right? With the newest version of Revit has a computational design tool in it, or generative design, I guess is what they're calling it.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of opportunity around that. You could take data from Internet of Things and use it to drive your design and say, how close spaces should be to each other, or even just common areas, how people can be in them and out of them. So I think, I've seen a lot of people just flip the switch and start learning computational design really quick.
Yeah, I haven't flipped that switch yet.
In terms of the data that we were talking about before, I think it's really interesting with us all working remote on different, internets, on different networks, not necessarily connected. Where does all the data live? Are we having people VPN in? Are we utilizing VDIs? What is going to be the new normal in terms of where we store stuff? If I print a document, where do I put it for my project?
There's a lot of so in my day job, there's been a lot of movement around companies moving to cloud-based data and workstations in the last few months. And a lot of it was, we have to do it right now. It wasn't, let's plan for a year and figure it out.
Right.
So we've helped a lot of customers move data to the cloud, whether it's, platforms like BIM 360, but even getting into AWS and Azure and being able to just have file store there, or remote workstations. Microsoft's workstation in Azure actually is very fast and efficient. We've been testing it out for some of our computer labs for our training sessions that we do. You can get 10 users on a workstation, and it's actually faster than most of their local systems. Just
Wow.
requires their internet to be fast enough.
Right. How much bandwidth is that consuming?
We're seeing that you need about 5 megs up and down continuously in order to stream a quality
Mm-hmm.
workstation from Azure. But
Per
it's
user.
the incredible thing is if you get into that Azure workstation and you run a speed test or an internet speed test,
Uh-huh.
it's running at about 2 to 5 gigabits per second
Yeah.
to the rest of the internet. So, but if you can imagine if your data is in the cloud and your workstation's in the cloud, how fast you would be able to access data.
Oh, yeah. I wonder how fast BIM 360 really is, though. How fast their internet connection is.
Yeah, I got to imagine that they even probably have caps on it too, because they
Yeah.
probably get paid. They have to probably pay because I think BIM 360 is in Amazon's cloud. They're
Uh-huh.
probably paying for storage and bandwidth.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're paying for storage and bandwidth.
We're paying for it.
They're moving that cost for us.
Well, and one thing that we're looking at Smith Group is with BIM 360 Docs, right? I mean, it kind of
Uh-huh.
creates a hub for your team to have all of those PDFs. So another kind of cloud solution, I guess,
Right.
for a lot of the content that your project may have.
I haven't looked at docs in a long time.
It's really come along. So before I came to US CAD about 3 years ago, when Docs was just first coming around, we looked at
Uh-huh.
it at the company I was at, and it was horrible. Flat
Yeah.
out, we would not use it. It was bad. Now it's actually, I'd say it's comparable to any kind of cloud-based document storage type solution, whether it's a Dropbox or Box or
Uh-huh.
OneDrive, any of those.
Really?
Um, I think the strongest point for it for people in our industry to use is the desktop connector. Really pulls that data down to you so you don't have to go upload and download constantly from a web page.
Mm.
You can just open it up with
Absolutely.
a drive letter, more or less.
What about the redlining capabilities? Is that better now?
It's improved in the last year, but it's nowhere near like a dedicated Bluebeam or something like
Yeah.
that. I think they've tried to keep it simple because the people that are going to probably use it aren't going to be your typical Bluebeam users, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are willing to shell out the money for Bluebeam Studio Prime, it integrates right into BIM 360.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, so
That's nice to know.
you can push right from BIM 360 your PDFs right into a studio session, run your full studio session, and then once you're done and you close it, it pulls all of it back with all the markups right back to BIM 360.
That's great.
I wonder if that's cheaper than all the tokens you'd be using by utilizing the docs side of things. Worth looking at. But I will also say that the versioning is kind of nice as well on docs. You can kind of look at previous versions, kind of the way that you would when you publish a model
Yep.
up into BIM 360. You can revert back to a previous version. Some nice things. One thing that I've heard from my users is the navigation isn't great. You can't really navigate from sheet to sheet or PDF to PDF very easily like you would in Bluebeam. So I think Troy's kind of on it where, I think maybe the really heavy users might have some heartache at the very beginning, but I think it, like Troy said, it's come an extremely long way.
And they are taking hints from what people want. BIM 360 is Autodesk's focus right now. Well, not just BIM 360, but the construction cloud. They are updating BIM 360 every 3 weeks with features. So I think they're listening, and they're putting out stuff. Obviously, not as big as what everybody wants right now, but I think some of the progress that you've seen out of it over the last year has been really good tools and features that have come through. One of the ones that was like the highest demand that I've seen for a long time was just being able to share documents out of BIM 360 with someone that's not in BIM 360. And when that got added, that you can share like that now, there's no reason that you can't share with anybody else. That one is a nice feature.
Yeah. My biggest challenge with all this is there's too many clouds.
There are.
And it's like, okay, well, what do we just started doing all the Microsoft stuff, so now we got OneDrive. Some people want to use Box, some people want to use Dropbox, others want to use Autodesk Cloud. The very strange ones, they say, oh, no, we got to use the Adobe Cloud because that's where all my InDesign files are. It's like, my goodness, you're more fragmented now than you were before. And how do we keep track of all this data that's in the project, and how do we memorialize all this data once the project is done so that we have a good record of the project in case litigation pops up? Or even
Yeah.
better, the client calls and says, hey, we're ready to do that next wing. And you're like, ooh, where the hell is all the data?
So it's interesting you bring that up. So and you mentioned what's a problem that I've solved recently. I have a very large customer that has that problem. They have a lot of data in a lot of places, on premise, in different platforms. And I started talking to the guys at Avail, and they actually integrate their collection system that they have across a lot of different platforms. So you end up with one front end, and it doesn't really matter where the data is, except for the people setting it up and creating those connections. But to the end users, they have one interface that allows them to get to all the data. This in particular customer did have Dropbox. They had BIM360 that they were trying to get projects in. They had on-premise. They had their own AWS storage, and Avail was able to set it up so that they could access all of that and create these collections. And so one of the collections was interesting. It actually had data from a couple of places, but again, the end user didn't know. They just knew that that was their project files.
Well, that's good for when the project is going on. But what do we do when we're done with the project and we need to memorialize it? We need to archive it. That's...
You talk to a lot of IT guys, they say download it all and store it all offline.
Yeah, well, that's what you got to do, but you got to find it all. Well, Avail can help you find it if...
Yeah, you got to find it all.
If the darn designers use the tools we tell them to.
I will say that's one thing that Autodesk has looked at with BIM360. You can actually package your models and your docs together. Now, obviously, like you guys are referring, there's so many other different files, right? So maybe it's a matter of expanding what can actually be hosted up to BIM360 docs more than just PDFs, right? Like where are shared parameters, where do they live, right? Where do I guess we can get on cloud keynotes and different things like that, but where do our keynote files live? Like where do these files that Revit relies on are templates?
Put them in BIM360 and use the desktop connector, and so that becomes your storage location for those things. So create a project that's just called company standards or something like that, and have all that in there so that they can access it, and make it just read only to them so that they can't edit it.
And can we edit the Revit INI so that it can look at that content? So if a project, if I have, Joe Schmo user that wants to start up a new Revit file, can they navigate to that really easily, or is it something they would have to download down or do a save as, those types of things? I guess that's really my question, is how those types of really smooth transitions I don't think we've worked out yet, right? I think desktop connector makes things a lot easier, and like you said, getting those things down to your desktop, not necessarily having, but even then you're still having to download from the cloud, like OneDrive, right? When we're grabbing stuff off OneDrive, you see those little download bars and things like that, and that's, I guess, just inherent of working on the cloud.
I guess that's good for what we're in today, where everyone is still working from home or what have you, or remotely. But once things get back to normal and we're back in the office, that's going to cause havoc on the internet connection at the office, with everyone starting to download all these files, especially when you set up a new machine for them. Now, because you have to have a download, I wouldn't think you could copy it from local, because then it would think it's all new, and then you're going to update everybody.
You think we'll ever be 100% back in the office?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the company. My company has decided that it's going to push more people to being remote, and that office sizes are going to be smaller, and possibly even some locations may become 100% remote for the future, just because it seems to be working right now for us.
Yeah, I can see that for US CAD doing that. It makes sense.
Yeah.
The only reason you need an office was if you wanted to do live training or a seminar or something.
Yeah, and I think for design firms, actually so many years ago, when I say many years ago, this is like 20 years ago, I worked for a small multidiscipline firm in Michigan called Design Plus. And we were tossing around the idea of not having permanent desks for anybody, but having hoteling spaces. And the reason behind it back then was because people would work on multiple projects, and one day they would be with this team, the next day they might be with another team. So why try and create studios of people if they're not going to be on the same teams? And I think that could apply now where you don't have a permanent desk. You just go in and plop down wherever you're going to be working for the day around the people you're going to be working with. The next day it could be somebody else. And then you also have the availability to work from home because you have the same equipment. So it really makes it accessible to work from wherever you want to.
Yeah, that's where having laptops come into play. So everyone's got their own laptop,
Yeah.
and then they have a bunch of docking stations everywhere. But then you still have the people who are like, I need to have my own desk. I want to have all of my pictures and all of my plants and all of my stuff in one spot in my desk.
Make it all virtual.
Yeah, make it all virtual.
Have a big monitor on the wall that you can use your Raspberry Pi to turn on your version of your office.
There you go. But now we've got, now the challenge becomes with the environment we have today is how do we have to then sanitize that space every night.
Yep.
You can't just have someone plop down and use their desk. I can see too where people are going to be like, well, I don't want to use that keyboard and that mouse that's there. That's not mine. And then it's like, oh, I'm not going to use that headset because someone else has used that headset. So you've got, well, they're going to use their laptop. They're going to have their own mouse. They're going to have their own headset. So every morning you're going to have the ritual of setting up, turning on, loading the thing. So you're going to be slowing that part down too. But I can see what you're talking about, that virtual teams and moving things around. I can see how that could work, but you got all those other parts too to worry about.
I don't know, maybe it's the millennial in me. But have you guys seen or read Ender's Game? It's a really wonderful book, but they turned it into a movie a few years ago. It's a futuristic idea about society and how everybody is basically just going to be living in a virtual world with a headset on. And I'm kind of thinking it's going that way. You know, like we're all just going to have this like almost like this three-dimensional treadmill where we can walk, and you know, it's boundless. You know, you can walk as far as you want and experience all of these crazy things virtually. You guys should read that book. Or I mean, I recommend the book over the movie, but the movie does the job too.
So we're all going to be living in a virtual world. We're going to be using the 3 shells, and we're all going to be
that's Demolition Man, another really wonderful another really wonderful futuristic movie.
Another one, that's right. And we'll be eating Soylent Green.
Well, and if you recall the way that people were reproduced in Demolition Man as well, right? I mean, it's like the whole human contact thing. People aren't wanting to, you know, like you said, even from an IT perspective, if somebody is having an issue with Revit, share your screen with me. I can't go and sit at your desk anymore.
Right.
That reminds me, I did the virtual gaming system in Las Vegas last year at Autodesk University. It's in the Venetian canals.
Oh, okay.
And it was Star Wars themed.
Oh.
And one of the guys, so you have a backpack. It's virtual reality, so you have the headset. They give you a fake gun, and you walk around and you're doing Star Wars. Mm-hmm. And one of the guys in our group, his headset was messing up, so we're in the middle of it, and you feel a guy tapping on your shoulder telling you to take your headset off.
Oh.
So when he took it off, there was just short walls and boxes everywhere.
Wow.
That the virtual reality was using to map the room inside your headset.
Yeah.
And it looked really good when you were inside of it.
Huh.
I mean, you couldn't tell that you were standing in an empty room with some boxes around.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah. if you get an opportunity, it was a really cool. I don't think it's Star Wars anymore, but I think it's something
Yeah, it
else.
could be anything.
For $30 and in 15 minutes, it was a pretty cool experience.
Yeah. Next AU.
I did when we were in Vegas that year. I actually did the roller coaster. Where is that with the VR experience? Is it in the Eiffel Tower? I'm not sure. But anyway,
I don't know.
I think it was actually the Big Apple. It was the Big Apple roller coaster. And yeah, you had an option to just do the roller coaster, or you could do it with a VR headset. And if you did it with the VR headset, it was like
Wow.
a dinosaur throwing you around and like scaling buildings. And of course I did the VR option, and it was so cool.
Yeah, that's great. I'm gonna have to give that a shot.
Yeah, you live close by. I'll have to send it to you, Bill. It's called the Big Apple Coaster in the New York Hotel and Casino. You know, actually, when they had built in DC, which was actually Arlington, right? It wasn't in DC at all. They did one of the events, one of the nights was actually at the Post Office Museum in DC. And I had never been. I'm a DC local, lived here my entire life. I'd never, because like, whatever, who wants to go to the Post Office Museum? Like, that sounds horrible, right? It was so cool, wasn't it? You guys went?
It was cool, yeah.
Yeah, it was cool.
It was really cool.
I would have never chosen to go there on my own.
No,
neither would I.
And it's right next to Union Station. So those of you who go into Washington, D.C., especially via Union Station, it's right next door. I recommend it. Absolutely. Amazing. They have like planes hanging in there, like the post office planes and like
the stagecoach.
Yeah, the stagecoach. They had such cool stuff in there. Yeah. So yeah, sometimes you need a conference to help you explore your own city, you know?
It was almost as cool as the I would say the Post Office Museum is the second place to the place that was in St. Louis.
Yeah, the St. Louis Museum was crazy.
That was like the Science Museum, right?
That's where we met, Nana.
Yeah, Coco.
Yeah, we had a great time. That was
a great time. All the conferences are a great time. I miss you guys face to face, you know? It's a good thing that we have these types of things, you know, where we can chat and catch up. But yeah, the conferences, it makes me super sad that we don't, you know, we're missing that part of the networking, you know, two really awesome people, Carl included, so 3 awesome people that I've met through the conferences that, you know, I haven't had the opportunity to meet new people at the conferences or catch up with my old friends. What do you think is going to happen next year? You think they're going to postpone the conferences again? Push them off?
I think it'll be mixed. I think they'll have limited capacity, and they'll keep, you know, the rooms small or spaced out. They're not going to be able to do free every year. Speaking of, I do have a question for you guys, since you guys are with firms. How are you guys viewing, with AU being free, the number of people in your company that can attend? You guys going to let everybody attend? Some? How are you guys working around that?
I found that the schedule is so unique, right? I mean, I understand there's kind of video conferencing fatigue that people are having. You know, you're in video conferences all day. Last thing you want to do is be in a 6-hour conference virtually. So how do you remedy that? But it's really hard to schedule those like 1-hour blocks of time every other day or every 3 days.
My challenge with the online conferences, and it's been this way all along, and even today, is everyone has good intentions of attending, watching the videos, and they don't make it to the video because something pops up, they got to work. And they say, well, I'm going to watch the recording. And then they never watch the recording because something else pops up. Or this other video conference comes up, or this other thing pops up. So we'll probably have a lot of people sign up for AU, but not many people attending it.
Yeah, I have to say, I really like what Built did this year, which was, I think what both of you are saying, it could be a potential downside, but what Built did is just have like 1 session or 2 sessions a week.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's going to go on indefinitely for the rest of the year until they decide when they're going to have an in-person conference. It's been great for me because I'm 100% conference goer. Yeah. I've been going to Autodesk University since the mid-90s, believe it or not.
Me too.
So it's ingrained in my career that's how I keep myself moving forward. So to be able to now have a hour and a half session this week and maybe one next week, that's perfect for me.
Yeah, I like the way
And
Bill's
then you
doing
get to digest it too. Like you're not just moving on from one session to the next in the same day and,
right.
you know, forgetting what you just heard in the previous one.
What would be really cool if Bill would do this, and I'm sure they're listening, is if they had a questions and answer session like 2 or 3 days after the conference, after the session.
Instead of immediately.
Yeah, so you had time to actually try it, to do it, and then you could attend the QA session with the speaker, and you're on there on the Zoomy thing, and he's helping you through it, or she's helping you through it.
It's interesting that you say that. One of the things that USCAD did for COVID, because a lot of our customers were having people that were, pushed home, is we created our own little online university kind of thing. But one of the things we did was we created office hours for the instructors. And I think it's similar to what you're saying, is that like every other Friday, you could schedule 10, 15 minutes with them.
Right.
But instead, you could just do, a full session and just have people come in and listen.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great because you learn a lot from the other questions, from someone else's question.
Absolutely.
Because like I never thought of that. Well, if you never thought of it, you wouldn't know to ask that question.
Yeah, I did like what Built did with. I don't think they did it with all of them, but some of them they scheduled the presentation for an hour and then a half hour of like a round table afterwards with the speaker and then some people that they would invite that also knew about that topic.
Yeah, what I'm talking about is having it a few days later, so you have time to
I think that's great.
Try the thing and then do it, because that's the other challenge with going to a live conference is you get all excited about these things and you go to all these sessions and then you're overloaded and you're like, oh, I watched Dana's session on how to do occupancy loads, and you give it a try. Your handouts are great, and you're like, oh, I just can't get past this one spot. I don't understand it, kind of a thing. It would be great if even with the live sessions or the traditional conferences, they would have a office hours after a week or two afterwards, where you could go in and this hour has Dana, this hour has Marcelo, this hour has whoever, and you go in there and ask your questions.
Yeah, because there's not really like a speakers lounge anymore, right? You can't like go hang out on Thursday at 1:30 with the speaker that you had yesterday,
Right. And not many people actually took advantage of that.
No, they didn't.
Or they would go to the speaker lounge and their speaker wasn't there. So.
Or that it was at the same time as another session you wanted to take.
Right.
That's why I think spreading them out, like what you're talking about, and then also spreading out the presentations.
Right.
So is it built all year long then?
Yeah, they can build it all year long now.
Yeah.
Or you can even have it all year long and go to the live conference. Have both.
Sure.
Will just become like master classes almost.
Yeah, you can have a class that goes more in depth.
Yeah. Well, Troy, do you have any final thought, future of our industry and how things are moving along? Anything about Troy the person that you want to wrap up with?
No, I just I really enjoy the industry that we're in. The community is so close knit. It's amazing. Even just the three of us talking like you were mentioning, it's just amazing how everybody is so helpful and so open with what they do. Trying to compare it to another industry that is just as open. Only thing that I could ever really think of is, like maybe the healthcare industry or maybe the programmers industry or software development. But it just seems like, sure, while we protect our projects and everybody wants, to be quiet about what they're doing, when it comes to technology, it just seems like everybody wants to share what they do. And that's been great for me. I've been the same way and really embraced it, and I love it.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I was at a firm that wasn't like that. They didn't want to share anything that they were doing, and didn't end up going to conferences. It didn't end up doing anything because they didn't want to share, didn't want to learn. So all the people that we get to meet in the conferences, their offices or their firms are the exact opposite. They want to share, they want to learn.
Yeah, and that's how you get those staff or employees that are doing innovative stuff.
Right.
Because if you're willing to share, then they're willing to work for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's night and day from what I think the industry looked like 20 years ago to today.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's all based around the openness. And I don't want to use Revit as a catalyst, but I think it had a big part of it because people did not like to share CAD. Um, when I worked with mainly AutoCAD in the 90s,
Mm-hmm.
people were very protective of their secrets in CAD.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
It is. And that's why I saw a lot of the CAD managers didn't really evolve into BIM managers
Yeah.
because they couldn't accept that openness. They don't want their model going out with all their secrets in it, but
Right.
you have to. You can't just create a background in Revit and share it with, another Revit user, right? So Revit kind of forced, I think, the industry to become more open.
Mm-hmm.
People might disagree with me on that, but I think it did. And it definitely did in my career. Revit was a huge catalyst in changing how I thought about how the industry worked.
Yeah.
And I think also it almost was like a sink or swim kind of circumstance in many ways, where so many people were trying to learn Revit, but maybe failing or going about it in, not the best way. And so it created this, almost forum kind of blog type community where we're all sharing our ideas and our, amazing, miraculous finds. We're like, why didn't I know that button was there? Type of
Mm-hmm.
things. And so I think
Yeah.
it was even just like struggling through learning a new program that maybe, I think you're right, Troy. I think it kind of harvested that sense of community, that sense of sharing.
Yeah.
And it's funny you mentioned blogs too. Trying to look back and I keep calling them the CAD days, but only one blog really sticks out to me, and that was Robert Greene, right?
Mm-hmm.
During the AutoCAD days. Now it's so many Revit blogs. I mean, just you can't keep track of them all. There's so many people that want to share what they're doing inside of Revit. Yeah.
It's amazing. We our firm turned a corner this last week. We had a job come in that was to be done in AutoCAD, and they couldn't find anyone that knew AutoCAD
That's great.
that was available.
That is
to
a
work.
good problem to have, I think.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like what? Auto what? I don't know how to use Auto.
I had someone today ask me a question about AutoCAD, and my reply to them is I have not used AutoCAD since 2000i.
Yes.
So if there was one technology I would say to keep on your radar is FormIt. And I say that mainly because I've been speaking with them for the last little bit,
Uh-huh.
and they've made a lot of improvements over the last year. Like they had a long pause.
Yeah.
The last year they've done a lot, and they have a lot coming out soon that I think are going to blow people away.
Wow. I can't wait to get people to heck off a SketchUp.
Yeah. Well, and most people own FormIt already. They don't even know that.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you have the AEC collection, you already have it. Oh, and FormIt has Dynamo in it too. I don't know if you knew that or not.
Yeah, I think I did know that.
And it's better.
Yeah, I knew that. Carl taught a bunch of classes on FormIt and Dynamo.
You can run multiple Dynamo scripts at the same time in FormIt.
Wow.
And you can embed Dynamo scripts into objects inside of FormIt. So they're doing some cool stuff.
Yeah. I think FormIt really I think FormIt's competitor is not SketchUp anymore. I think FormIt's competitor is really Rhino.
Yeah, I think that's where they're headed. I absolutely do, especially with the connection of pushing it into Revit.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think SketchUp has really pooed the scrooch on their new licensing schemes, and
their innovations really slowed down too.
Yeah, and you can't run it over remote desktop,
Nope.
which right now is a very important feature for us. It's getting people off of SketchUp. I'll give them that. The licensing and no remote desktop.
SketchUp is like Photoshop. Just once you get into it, people don't want to leave.
Yeah.
They will never use an alternative.
All right, Troy. Well, thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you guys for the invite. This is awesome.
It was fun. We're going to have you back on.
I'd love it.
Make sure you look up Troy. He's on the everywhere. And look up Tina. She's on the everywhere too. And look up me. And check out my YouTube channel. I think you'll enjoy it.